The warning bells screamed through the orbital defense station high above. Nexus Prime. Lieutenant Commander Vex stared at his screen with wide eyes. Something was coming through the outer sensor grid. Something that should not exist. Sir, we have an unknown contact approaching from Sector 7. Vex called to his captain. His voice shook slightly. In 20 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. Captain Crix walked over to the sensor station. His forearms moved quickly across the controls as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. The ship was big, maybe 800 meters long, but its design was all wrong. It looked crude and ugly compared to the sleek ships of the Zephyrian Empire. Run a full scan, Crix ordered. I want to know everything about that vessel. Deep in space, Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the Liberty's Edge. The human ship moved slowly through the darkness toward the bright blue world ahead. Jake had been preparing for this moment his whole life. His father had told him stories about the old days when humans lived freely among the stars. Now it was time to see if those stories were true. Captain, they're scanning us, said Lieutenant Lisa Turner from her position at the sensor controls. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and steady hands. Like everyone on the ship, she had trained for years for this mission. Let them look, Jake said quietly. He was 42 years old, with gray hair and lines around his eyes from years of staring into space. We have nothing to hide. The Liberties. Edge was not a beautiful ship. It was built for one purpose: to survive. Its hull was thick and scarred from years of travel through dangerous space. The engines were simple fusion drives that could run for decades without repair. Everything about the ship said the same thing. We are still here. Back on the defense station, the scan results were coming in. Lieutenant Commander Vex read the data with growing confusion. The ship was made of metals that the Empire had not seen in 200 years. Its power source was primitive, but somehow very efficient. Most strange of all, it was carrying life signs from a species that was supposed to be extinct. Captain, Vex said slowly, the computer says these are humans. Captain Crix felt his blood turn cold. Humans were a legend, a story told to young soldiers about the dangers of showing mercy to enemies. The Empire had wiped them out long ago during the Great Expansion. Their homeworld of Earth had been burned clean, their colonies destroyed, their ships turned to scrap metal. That's impossible, Crix said. Humans are dead. We made sure of that. The scans don't lie, sir. These are definitely human life signs. Crix activated his communication system. This was too important for a simple defense station commander to handle alone. Within minutes, he was speaking directly to Admiral Zorks, the commander of the Fourth Fleet. Admiral, we have a situation. Crix began. He explained about the unknown ship and the impossible scan results. Admiral Zorks was quiet for a long moment. He was an old soldier who had fought in the final battles against the human colonies. He remembered the last human ships burning in the void of space. He remembered the reports saying that every human world had been cleansed. Are you certain about this, Captain? The Admiral asked. The scans are clear, sir. It's a human ship. Then we have a problem, Admiral Zork said. If humans survived, if they've been hiding out there all this time, then everything we thought we knew is wrong. On the Liberty's Edge, Captain Jake Miller watched the Imperial fleet beginning to gather. 3 massive warships were moving into position around his small vessel. Their weapons were powered up, their shields glowing with deadly energy. They're not very welcoming, said Commander Alex Brown, Jake's second in command. Alex was a big man with steady nerves and a calm voice. He had served in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years before joining this mission. They're scared, Jake replied. Imagine if you thought all the wolves were dead, and then one walked into your living room. What do we do, Captain? asked Lisa Turner. Jake looked at the blue world spinning slowly below them. Somewhere down there, the leaders of the Zephyrian Empire were probably having emergency meetings. They were trying to figure out how humans could still exist. They were wondering what it meant for their perfect, ordered galaxy. "We wait," Jake said. "We came here to talk, not to fight. Let them make the first move." The unknown vessel continued its slow approach to Nexus Prime. Inside the ship, 37 humans went about their duties with quiet efficiency. They had spent their whole lives preparing for this moment. They were the children of survivors, the descendants of those who had escaped the Empire's Fury 2 centuries ago. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were very good at surviving. The diplomatic cruiser Dominion's Will moved slowly toward the human ship. Commander Alex Brown stood on its bridge, watching the strange vessel grow larger on the main screen. He had been chosen to lead first contact because he was known for staying calm under pressure. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Sir, the human ship is still not responding to our signals," reported Lieutenant Zara from the communications station. She had been trying to make contact for 2 hours. "Keep trying," Commander Brown said. "Use all frequencies. If they came this far, they must want to talk." On the Liberty's edge, Captain Kate Johnson sat at her communications console. She was listening to the alien signals coming from the Imperial ships. The language was completely different from anything humans had heard before, but her computer was slowly learning to translate it. "Captain Miller," Kate called across the bridge. "I think I'm starting to understand their language." "They're asking us to respond." Captain Jake Miller nodded. "Then let's answer them. Use the basic translation program we brought." Kate took a deep breath and opened a channel. Speaking slowly and carefully, she said, "This is the Earthship Liberties. Edge, we come in peace. We want to talk." The words came through the Imperial ship's speakers in broken galactic standard. Commander Brown felt his heart skip a beat. It was real. These were actually humans speaking to him across the void of space. "Human ship," Brown replied, speaking as simply as he could. "This is Commander Brown of the Zephyrian Empire. We want to understand how you are here. We thought all humans were gone." On Nexus Prime, Emperor Valdus sat in his great throne room, listening to the conversation through his communication link. He was 8 feet tall with golden skin and eyes like burning stars. For 200 years, he had ruled the galaxy with absolute power. The idea that humans had survived made him feel something he had not felt in decades: fear. "Your Majesty," said his advisor, Minister Kex, "should we destroy the ship now, before they can send any signals back to their home?" Emperor Valdus was quiet for a long time. "No," he finally said. "If they made it here, others know where they went. Killing them might only make things worse." Back in space, the conversation continued. Captain Jake Miller had joined Kate at the communication station. He was trying to explain where humans had come from without giving away too much information. "We are from Earth," Jake said slowly. "Our home was attacked long ago, but some of us escaped. We have been living in the far places, the empty places between stars." Commander Brown translated this for his crew. Lieutenant Zara looked confused. "Sir, how could they survive out there? The empty sectors have no good worlds, no resources." "That's what we need to find out," Brown replied. Dr. Tev, the ship's science officer, was studying the readings from the human vessel. What he saw made no sense. The ship was built from materials that should not exist anymore. Its life support systems were working in ways the Empire scientists said were impossible. "Commander," Dr. Tev reported, "their ship is running on power sources we haven't seen in centuries. And their life signs are strange. These humans are tougher than the old record said they should be." On the Liberty's edge, Dr. Marcus Webb was doing his own scans of the Imperial ships. He was impressed by their size and power, but he also noticed something important. The ships were built for fighting in normal space, around normal worlds. They would not work well in the harsh places where humans had learned to live. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "their technology is very advanced, but it's also very specialized. They've been living the easy life for too long." Captain Miller nodded. This was what Earth's leaders had hoped to hear. The Empire was strong, but they had grown soft while humans had grown hard. The conversation continued for hours. Commander Brown learned that humans had not just survived, but had built new colonies on worlds the Empire thought were worthless. Captain Miller learned that the Empire controlled most of the galaxy, but had never bothered to explore the dangerous outer regions. "We want to meet with your leaders," Brown finally said. "This is too important for ship captains to decide alone." "We agree," Miller replied. "But we will not come to your world as prisoners. We come as equals, or we do not come at all." This caused a stir on the Imperial Bridge. No one had spoken to the Empire as equals in 200 years. But Commander Brown realized he had no choice. If humans had really survived and grown strong, the Empire needed to know how strong. "I will ask my superiors," Brown said, "but I think they will agree to meet." As the two ships floated in space near Nexus Prime, both sides began to understand that everything had changed. The galaxy was not what either of them had thought it was, and whatever happened next would determine the future of both species. The news spread through the Imperial fleet like fire through dry grass. Humans were alive. The species they had destroyed 2 centuries ago had somehow survived and come back. On every ship, officers and soldiers gathered around communication screens to hear the impossible truth. Admiral Zorks stood in his command center aboard the massive battleship Thunder of Nexus. He was reading reports that made his head spin. The human ship had shown them rock samples from dozens of worlds, worlds that the Empire had written off as dead and worthless. "Sir," said his science officer, Lieutenant Colonel Hex, "these samples are real. They come from planets in the void sectors, the radiation zones, and the dead systems. No one can live in those places." "Apparently humans can," Admiral Zorks replied grimly. He had fought humans 200 years ago when he was young. They had been tough fighters, but nothing special. Now it seemed they had become something else entirely. On the Liberty's Edge, Dr. Marcus Webb was preparing his presentation for the Imperial scientists. He had brought evidence that would shock them to their core. Rock samples, water from alien seas, and air from worlds that should kill any living thing. "Are you sure about this, Marcus?" Captain Miller asked. "Once we show them what we've become, there's no going back." Marcus nodded. He was a thin man with gray hair and steady hands. He had spent 40 years studying how humans had adapted to impossible worlds. "They need to know, Captain. If we're going to live in peace, they have to understand what we are now." The Imperial science team gathered in the main conference room of their ship. Dr. Tev led the group, along with specialists in biology, chemistry, and planetary science. They had studied the old human records, but those were 200 years old. What could have changed in all that time? Dr. Webb's image appeared on their screen. Behind him, they could see the inside of the human ship. It looked rough and practical, built for hard use rather than comfort. "Greetings." Dr. Webb began in his careful Imperial language. "I am here to tell you about human survival. About how we lived when you thought we were dead." He started with the rock samples. Each one came from a different world in the outer galaxy. Worlds with crushing gravity, deadly radiation, or poisonous air. Worlds where Imperial ships could not even land safely. "This sample," Webb said, holding up a dark stone, comes from Kepler 442. The gravity there is 3 times Earth normal. The radiation would kill most species in hours. But humans have lived there for 150 years. The Imperial. Scientists looked at each other in disbelief. Dr. Tev checked his records. Kepler 442 was listed as uninhabitable. No life could survive there. This is impossible, Dr. Tev said out loud. That's what we thought too, Dr. Webb replied with a slight smile. But humans are very good at making impossible things possible. He showed them more samples. Water from the acid seas of Proxima 7, air from the methane storms of Wolf 359b, soil from worlds so close to their suns that metal melted on the surface. How? Dr. Tev asked. How do you survive in such places? We changed, Dr. Webb said simply. Not just our technology, but ourselves. We had to become stronger, smarter, more adaptable. The soft humans you remember are gone. We are something new now. Fleet Admiral Chunvos was listening to the conversation from his flagship. He was the Empire's greatest military mind, and he understood what he was hearing. Humans had not just survived, they had evolved. They had become a species that could live anywhere, under any conditions. Sir, his aide whispered, if they can live on those worlds, what does that mean for our expansion plans? Admiral Voss was quiet for a moment. The Empire had always expanded by taking the best worlds and leaving the dangerous ones empty. But if humans could live on dangerous worlds, then they controlled territory the Empire had never even considered. Dr. Webb continued his presentation. He showed them images of human cities built inside asteroids, floating in the clouds of gas giants, buried deep in radioactive moons. Each image showed the same thing: humans thriving where others could not even survive. We have 43 colony worlds now, Dr. Webb said. 15 billion humans spread across the galaxy. We live in the places you call empty, the places you call dead. We have turned your wastelands into our gardens. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark stepped forward. He was the Liberty's Edge's military advisor, a man who had spent years studying Imperial tactics and weaknesses. Your Empire controls the easy worlds, Ryan said. The garden worlds with perfect air and gentle gravity. But we control the hard worlds, the frontier worlds, the worlds that make you strong. We have been watching you for decades, learning about you while you forgot about us. This was the news that Admiral Zorks had been dreading. Humans had not just survived randomly. They had planned and prepared. They had been studying the Empire while the Empire thought they were extinct. How many ships do you have? Admiral Zorks asked directly. Captain Miller answered this time. Enough, he said simply. We came here to talk about peace, Admiral. But we are not helpless refugees begging for mercy. We are a nation that wants to live alongside yours. The implications hit the Imperial command like a hammer blow. Humans had territory, resources, and military strength. They had built a civilization in the galaxy's deadliest regions. And now they were back, offering to talk as equals. Valdris sat on his throne, processing everything he had heard. For 200 years, the Empire had expanded without opposition. They had grown comfortable, soft, used to easy victories. Now they faced an enemy that had been forged in the fires of impossible worlds. The galaxy had room for both species, but only if they could learn to share it. The easy days of Imperial expansion were over. Humanity had returned, and this time they were here to stay. The shuttle bay doors of the Liberty's Edge opened slowly. Ambassador Helen Ross stepped out onto the metal deck, followed by her small team of diplomats and guards. She was 55 years old, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. War. Behind her walked Colonel Sam Price, a soldier who had trained his whole life for this moment. Helen looked around the Imperial shuttle bay, where she would meet the Zephyrian delegation. Everything was clean and perfect, built for show, rather, than hard use. It reminded her of the old stories about Earth before the burning, when humans had also lived comfortable lives. "Remember," Helen said quietly to her team, "we are not here to beg. We are here as equals, representing 43 worlds and 15 billion people." Commander Brown waited at the airlock with his own diplomatic team. He had been ordered to learn everything he could about human intentions, while giving away nothing about Imperial weaknesses. It was a dangerous game, and both sides knew it. "Ambassador Ross," Commander Brown said formally, "welcome aboard the Dominion's will. I hope we can find common ground for peace." Helen smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "Commander Brown, I hope so too. But first, your empire must accept that we have the right to exist." They moved to the main conference room. The Imperial delegation sat on one side of a long table, the humans on the other. The air was thick with tension as both sides studied their opponents. "Let us be clear about why we are here," Helen began. 200 years ago, your empire tried to wipe out humanity. You burned our worlds, destroyed our ships, and scattered our people. But we survived. Minister Kex, the Emperor's personal representative, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "The past is the past, Ambassador. We are here to discuss the future." "The past shapes the future," Helen replied firmly. "You tried to commit genocide against our species. Now we have returned, and we want to know what you intend to do about it." Colonel Sam Price watched the Imperial officers carefully. He could see them trying to figure out how strong humanity really was. They wanted to know if humans were a threat they needed to crush or a problem they could ignore. "How many worlds do you really control?" asked Admiral Zorks, who had joined the meeting by video link from his battleship. "Enough to defend ourselves," Colonel Price answered. "We learned long ago not to give our enemies complete information about our strength." This was not what the Imperials wanted to hear. They were used to weaker species telling them everything, in hopes of mercy. Humans were giving them nothing. Doctor Tev tried a different approach. "We could work together. Your people have learned to live on difficult worlds. We could share technology, trade resources." Helen laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Trade? What do you have that we need? For 2 centuries, we have survived. Without your help, we have learned to make everything we need from rocks and ice and radiation. But surely you need medical supplies, luxury goods, advanced computers," Minister Kex suggested. "We make our own medicine from plants that grow in acid rain," Helen replied. "Our luxury is survival. Our computers are built to work in environments that would fry your circuits in seconds." The truth was becoming clear to both sides. Humans had not just survived, they had become completely independent. They needed nothing from the Empire, while the Empire was just learning that humans controlled vast territories they had never explored. Captain Miller joined the conversation from the Liberty's Edge. "We did not come here to threaten you. We came here to prevent a war that would hurt both our peoples." "What kind of war?" Admiral Zorks asked sharply. "The kind where your fleets try to attack our worlds and learn too late that we are not the same species you fought 200 years ago," Captain Miller said calmly. Colonel Price leaned forward. "Admiral, your ships are built for fighting around normal worlds with normal gravity and normal radiation. Our worlds would kill your crews before you could even land. But our ships are built to go anywhere, survive anything." This was the nightmare scenario Imperial planners had been discussing in secret. If humans controlled the outer regions of the galaxy, they had strategic advantages the Empire could not match. They could attack Imperial worlds from directions the Empire never defended. "What do you want from us?" Commander Brown asked directly. "Recognition," Helen said. Accept that humanity has the right to exist, to control our own worlds, to live in peace. In return, we will respect your borders and trade fairly with your people. And if we refuse? Minister Kex asked. Helen's smile became sharp as a blade. Then you will learn why we survived when you thought we were dead. You will discover what humans become when they have nothing left to lose. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken threats. Both sides understood that they were balanced. On the edge of a knife, one wrong word, one hostile move, could start a war that would reshape the galaxy. Emperor Valdus spoke through the communication link from his throne world. His voice was cold as space itself. We will consider your proposal, Ambassador, but do not mistake our willingness to talk for weakness. We would never make that mistake, Your Majesty, Helen replied. We learned long ago that weakness is a luxury humans cannot afford. The meeting ended with both sides knowing that everything had changed. The galaxy was no longer the Empire's private playground. Humanity had returned, and this time they would not be so easy to destroy. Engineering Chief Diana Walsh stood in the main hangar of the Liberty's Edge, surrounded by curious Imperial scientists. She was a small woman with strong hands and oil stains on her uniform. Behind her sat a human maintenance robot, its metal body scarred from years of hard work. You wanted to see our technology, Diana said to Dr. Tev and his team. This is it. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated. Just tools that work. Dr. Tev looked at the robot with confusion. It was ugly compared to Imperial machines, built from thick metal plates welded together. Its sensors were simple, its movements slow and careful. This machine is very primitive, Dr. Tev said. Our maintenance robots are much more advanced. Show me, Diana replied with a slight smile. Dr. Tev activated his personal robot assistant. It was beautiful, smooth, and silver, moving with perfect grace. Its sensors glowed with soft blue light as it scanned the hangar. Very nice, Diana said. I'll watch this. She led the group to a chamber that had been prepared for the demonstration. Inside, the air was filled with deadly radiation, hot enough to melt most metals. Warning signs covered the walls in 3 languages. The Imperial robot tried to enter the chamber and immediately shut down. Its circuits fried, its beautiful silver surface turning black from the heat. Diana's ugly robot walked into the chamber without hesitation. It moved through the radiation like it was nothing, performing simple tasks while the Imperial scientists watched in amazement. How? Dr. Kev asked. Simple, Diana replied. Your robot is designed to work in perfect conditions. Mine is designed to work in hell. On the bridge of the Thunder of Nexus, General Peter Stone was showing Admiral Zorks something that made the old Admiral's blood run cold. It was a star map, but not like any the Empire had ever seen. These are our supply routes, General Stone explained. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of frontier warfare. Every red dot is a human supply depot. Every blue line is a shipping route between our worlds. Admiral Zorks stared at the map. The Empire's territory was shown in green, a cluster of comfortable worlds in the galaxy's center. Around it, like a vast web, were the red dots and blue lines of human civilization. You surround us, Admiral Zorks said quietly. We don't surround you, General Stone corrected. We live in the places you cannot go. But yes, if there was a war, we would have advantages. The general touched a control, and the map changed. Now it showed Imperial shipping routes in yellow. Every major trade route passed through or near areas of human control. Your cargo ships use the same paths they have used for 200 years, General Stone continued. Safe routes through normal space around normal stars. We know all of them. Admiral Zorks felt a chill run down his spine. The Empire's entire economy depended on trade between its worlds. If humans could threaten those trade routes, they could strangle the Empire without firing a shot. Back in the hangar, Diana Walsh was showing the Imperial scientists something else. It was a piece of metal from the Liberty's Edge's hull. She handed it to Dr. Tev. "Try to damage it," she said. Dr. Tev used every tool he had. Lasers, acids, extreme temperatures. Nothing worked. The metal looked ordinary, but it was stronger than anything the Empire had ever made. "What is it?" Dr. Tev asked. "Steel," Diana replied. "Just steel. But steel made by people who had to build things that would last forever, with no way to replace them." She explained how human engineers had learned to make materials from whatever they could find. Ice from comets became water for their cities. Radiation from dying stars became power for their machines. Metals from asteroids became hulls for their ships. "We had to learn to use everything," Diana said. "Your empire had the luxury of picking and choosing the best materials from the best worlds. We had to make do with whatever we could find." Captain Susan Gray joined the demonstration. She was the Liberty's Edge's pilot, a woman who had flown through dangers that would terrify Imperial captains. "Show them the engine room," Captain Gray suggested. Diana led the group deeper into the ship. The Imperial scientists expected to see primitive machinery, but what they found was something else entirely. The engines were small, but incredibly efficient. They could run on almost any kind of fuel, repair themselves when damaged, and work in conditions that would destroy Imperial engines. "These engines are 200 years old," Diana explained. "They have never been shut down. They have carried use across the galaxy and back, through radiation storms and gravitational anomalies, and places where normal engines would fail." Dr. Tev ran his scanners over the engines. The readings made no sense. According to Imperial science, these machines should not work at all. "Your technology is impossible," Dr. Tev said. "Your technology is perfect," Diana replied. "Perfect for perfect conditions. But perfect things break when conditions are not perfect. Our technology is not perfect. It is tough." The demonstrations continued for hours. Human tools that could work in any environment. Human materials that could survive anything. Human machines that could fix themselves and keep running when everything else had failed. By the end of the day, the Imperial scientists understood something that terrified them. Human technology was not more advanced than Imperial technology. In many ways, it was simpler and cruder, but it was also more reliable, more adaptable, and more practical. The Empire had spent 2 centuries making their technology more complex and specialized. Humans had spent 2 centuries making their technology simpler and stronger. In a war, complex technology that needed perfect conditions would face simple technology that could work anywhere. The Imperial scientists began to understand why their military leaders were so worried. As the demonstrations ended, Diana Walsh stood with her Imperial counterparts. They looked at her with new respect and something else. Fear. "We could learn from each other, Doctor," Tev suggested quietly. "Yes," Diana agreed. "But first, you have to accept that both ways of building things have value. Your way makes life comfortable. Our way makes life possible." The emergency council meeting on Nexus Prime had been going for 6 hours. Emperor Valdris sat on his throne, while his top generals and admirals argued about what to do with the humans. The reports coming in from the Outer Rim territories were getting worse by the hour. Admiral Gary Bell's voice crackled through the communication system from his scout ship near the edge of Imperial space. His words sent chills through everyone in the throne room. "Your Majesty, I am looking at a human mining operation on asteroid belt XK 739. According to our records, this system is empty and worthless. But there are thousands of humans here, pulling. Metals from rocks we said had no value. Emperor Valdris gripped the arms of his throne tighter. How many operations, Admiral? 17 in this sector alone, Your Majesty. They have been here for decades, maybe longer. They know we patrol these areas, but they have been hiding from our sensors. General Vex looked at his tactical displays with growing horror. Each new report added more red dots to the map. Human settlements on worlds that were supposed to be dead. Human factories inside asteroids the Empire had written off as worthless. Human observation posts watching Imperial shipping routes from places no one thought to check. "Sir," said his aide, Lieutenant Rex, "if these reports are correct, humans have been watching us for 50 years or more." On the Liberty's edge, Captain Susan Gray was having her own conversation with the Imperial fleet commanders. She had been chosen for this moment because she was good at delivering hard truths in simple words. "You want to know the truth?" Susan asked Admiral Zorks, who was listening from his battleship. "The truth is that this is not first contact. We have been studying you for a very long time." Admiral Zorks felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "I mean we know how fast your ships are, how strong your shields are, where your weapons point, and where they do not. We know which of your officers are smart and which are lazy. We know which of your worlds are well defended and which are not." Susan touched to control, and data began flowing to the Imperial ships. Star charts showing human observation posts within a few light years of major Imperial worlds. Shipping schedules that matched Imperial trade routes perfectly. Even personality files on important Imperial officials. "This is impossible," Admiral Zorks said. "Our security is perfect. No one can spy on the Empire without us knowing." "No one." "With Imperial technology," Susan agreed. "But we do not use Imperial technology. We use technology designed to be invisible, to work in empty space, to watch and listen and never be seen." Captain Susan Gray continued her revelation. The Liberty's Edge was not an exploration ship that had stumbled across the Empire. It was a diplomatic vessel sent by a government that had been preparing for this meeting for decades. "We knew this. Day would come," Susan explained. "We knew that eventually the Empire would expand far enough to notice us, or we would grow strong enough to reveal ourselves. We have been getting ready." The Imperial commanders demanded proof. Susan gave it to them. Video recordings of Imperial ships taken from hidden cameras. Audio recordings of Imperial communications intercepted by human listening hosts. Detailed maps of Imperial military bases created by human spies who had watched them being built. Valdris listened to these revelations with growing rage and fear. The Empire had thought itself safe behind walls of technology and military might. Now they learned that humans had been watching them from the shadows for generations. "How many spies do you have in our territory?" Emperor Valdris demanded. "None." Susan replied calmly. "We do not need spies in your territory. We just need to watch your ships when they pass through our territory." This was the truth that hit the Empire like a hammer. Human territory was not separate from Imperial territory. Human territory surrounded Imperial territory. Every Imperial ship that traveled between worlds passed through space that humans controlled or watched. Admiral Gary Bell's reports kept coming in. Human settlements in the Kepler radiation zone. Human factories in the Wolf Dark Nebula. Human military bases and systems so dangerous that Imperial ships would not even enter them. "Your Majesty," Admiral Bell reported, "I am now looking at what appears to be a human battleship construction facility. They are building vessels inside the Corona Gamma pulsar system. Our ships cannot get close enough to scan them properly." The true scope of human expansion was becoming clear. While the Empire had been comfortable in their core worlds, humans had colonized the most dangerous regions of space. They had turned the galaxy's deadliest neighborhoods into thriving communities. General Peter Stone provided the final piece of the puzzle. He transmitted a message directly to Emperor Valdris, using diplomatic channels that bypassed all Imperial security. "Your Majesty," Stone began, "I am General Peter Stone, commanding officer of the Earth Expeditionary Force. I want you to understand something important. The ship you are talking to, the Liberty's Edge, is not our main fleet. It is just one small diplomatic vessel." The general paused to let this sink in before continuing. "Our main battle fleet is currently positioned at the edge of your territory, waiting for orders. If these negotiations fail, if your empire chooses war over peace, you will discover what 43 worlds can build when they have 2 centuries. To prepare, long-range sensors on Imperial border stations began picking up massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace. Ships were coming, many ships, from directions the Empire had never defended because they thought nothing could attack from there. Emperor Valdris sat in his throne room, surrounded by his advisors and generals, realizing that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was wrong. The Empire was not alone, was not supreme, was not safe. Humans had returned, and they had not come back as refugees or supplicants. They had come back as equals, with their own territory, their own technology, and their own military power. Galaxy was about to change forever, and the Empire could either accept the new reality or be destroyed by it. Emperor Valdris stood alone in his private chambers, looking out at the stars through the great crystal window. For 200 years, he had ruled the galaxy without challenge. Now everything was changing, and he had to make a choice that would determine the future of both species. The communication device on his desk glowed softly. A message was waiting from President Tony Mitchell of the United Earth Alliance. Valdris had been avoiding this call for 3 hours, but he could not wait any longer. He activated the device, and the image of a human leader appeared. President Mitchell was a man in his 60s with gray hair and tired eyes. He looked like someone who had carried heavy responsibilities for a long time. "Your Imperial Majesty," President Mitchell began, speaking clearly in perfect galactic standard, "I am calling to offer you a choice. We can be neighbors and trading partners, or we can be enemies. But we will not go quietly into the night ever." Again, Emperor Valdris studied the human president. This was not the desperate leader of a dying species begging for mercy. This was the elected representative of a strong nation making an offer between equals. "What are your terms?" Emperor Valdris asked. "Simple," President Mitchell replied. "Recognize our right to exist and control our own territory. Respect our borders as we will respect yours. Trade with us fairly as we will trade with you. In return, we will share the galaxy in peace. And if we refuse?" President Mitchell's expression became cold as space. "Then you will learn what humans are capable when they have nothing left to lose. But I hope it does not come to that. War helps no one." On the bridge at the Liberty's Edge, Captain Jake Miller watched his tactical display. The first ships of the human battle fleet were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system. They were smaller than Imperial dreadnoughts, but moved with deadly purpose. Admiral Zorks stood on his own bridge, watching the same display with growing concern. The human ships were not arranged like any fleet he had ever seen. They moved in small groups, using the asteroids and space debris for cover. They were fighting like hunters, not like a traditional navy. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "their energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. Their weapons appear to be designed specifically to counter our shield frequencies." Admiral Zorks realized what this meant. Humans had not just been watching Imperial ships for decades. They had been studying Imperial technology, learning its weaknesses, designing weapons to exploit them. Captain Miller opened a communication channel to the Imperial fleet. "Admiral Zorks, we do not want to fight you. But if you force us to, you will discover that we have learned much about war in the past 2 centuries. The human ships spread out across the system like a pack of wolves surrounding their prey. They did not move in neat formations like Imperial ships. They moved like predators who had learned to hunt in the most dangerous places in the galaxy. Emperor Valders made his decision. He opened a channel to all Imperial forces in the system. "This is Emperor Valders," he announced. "All Imperial ships will stand down. We will negotiate with the humans as equals." The relief on both sides was immediate. No one wanted a war that would devastate both civilizations. But everyone understood that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted forever. Ambassador Helen. Ross met with Emperor Valders in person 3 days later. The meeting took place on a neutral space station between the Imperial fleet and the human fleet. Both leaders brought small delegations, but the real negotiations were between the 2 of them. "You could have destroyed us 200 years ago," Helen said quietly, "but you chose to try. That was your mistake. You taught us that the galaxy is not safe for the weak." "And now?" Emperor Valders asked. "Now we are not weak," Helen replied. "We are strong enough to defend ourselves and generous enough to share the galaxy with others who respect our right to exist." The treaty they signed was simple but historic. The Empire would recognize human territory and sovereignty. Humans would recognize Imperial territory and sovereignty. Both sides would trade freely and respect each other's borders. But everyone understood that this was more than just a peace treaty. It was the beginning of a new age. For 2 centuries, the Empire had been the only major power in the galaxy. Now there were 2. Captain Miller stood on his bridge, watching the Imperial fleet slowly withdrawing to a respectful distance. His crew was tired but proud. They had carried out their mission without firing a shot, but everyone knew they had been ready to fight if necessary. "Captain," asked Lieutenant Lisa Turner, "what happens now?" "Now we go home," Miller replied. "We tell our people that humans have a place in the galaxy again, not as refugees or victims, but as equals." The Liberty's Edge began its long journey back to Earth, followed by most of the human battle fleet. But some ships remained, establishing permanent diplomatic and trade missions in Imperial space. Emperor Valders returned to his throne world, knowing that his empire would never be the same. The age of easy expansion was over. The galaxy now had 2 apex species, and they would have to learn to coexist. On Earth, President Mitchell addressed the human colonies spread across 43 worlds. The message was simple. Humanity was no longer hiding. They had revealed themselves to the galaxy and claimed their place among the stars. The galaxy was big enough for both species, but only if they could learn to respect each other. The alternative was a war that would hurt everyone and help no one. The age of human isolation was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun.